Information shared on the following program is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, investment, or other advice, nor is it intended to recommend any particular investments, products, or financial instruments. Always seek advice from your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant with regard to investment, legal, or tax questions.
Hey, Aaron.
Hey, Tony, what's up?
Hey, I got a question for you. See if you can figure this one out. What if all of the world's wealth was evenly distributed to all of the world's people? How long do you think it would take for all of the world's wealth to get back into the hands of just a few people?
Oh gosh, Tony, I don't know. I don't have any idea.
Well, I do.
Welcome to the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money, the Worry-Free Retirement, with your host, best-selling author and fiduciary, Tony Walker.
One of the most frequent questions I'm asked during election years is this: should I or should I not invest money in the stock market during an election year? In other words, what people are really asking is this: is now a good time to put money in the risky stock market? And seeing as though we're recording this show on Tuesday, September 9th, 2020, and seeing as though we are in the midst of one of the most interesting years for an election year during my 60 years on planet Earth, this question, whether or not you should be pulling money out of the stock market before or after the election, or whether you should be pumping money into it, is one of the most difficult of all to predict. Yet article after article, pundit after pundit, are all trying to predict what will happen to the market based on who might be elected as our nation's next president. However, as we'll learn on today's show, regardless of whether a Democrat or Republican wins the presidential seat, regardless of whether their skin color is white, black, yellow, or pale blue, the person ending up as president of these United States really has very little to do with whether you retire worried or worry-free. Believe it or not, what's more important than the person sitting in the Oval Office for the next 4 years is whether or not savers will stick to their plans by avoiding a bunch of unnecessary risk and other costs. And instead, these savers staying the course with a written game plan that includes mailbox money for life. And that's what we're going to be talking about on today's show. Well, welcome, folks, to the Worry-Free Retirement. And yes, I am that little man in the sweater vest, financial election specialist and retirement planning specialist, Tony Walker. And of course, before we get started, let me introduce the producer of the Worry-Free Retirement, America's favorite financial sidekick, Mr. Aaron Orander, along with his two new favorite sidekicks assisting with the show, Mr. Derek Hudson and Miss Amelia Johnson. Okay, so here we are. It's the year 2020, a year that started out with some of the lowest unemployment on record, with a GDP that was proving that our economy was humming along, a stock market that was continually going up, and the appearance, anyway, of no civil unrest in this country. I don't know about you, but in early March, I was pretty much at peace about the things of the world and pretty darn good about the rest of 2020. In fact, my wife and I had 2 trips planned to Disney, and we even had a trip planned to Mexico, all 3 of which were scrapped as a result of this darn flu. Of course, we remember it well. I do, because on March 16th, we had a huge financial seminar planned with over 60 registrants when, out of the blue, the government announced that we couldn't even meet. As Paul Harvey used to say, you know the rest of the story. The financial wheels then fell off. Thinking this was a short-term problem until we flattened the curve, whatever that was supposed to mean, here we are 6 months later as we all walk around in masks and various face coverings looking as though we just lost our best friend. On top of all this, throw into the mix a little civil unrest and a major election this November, and you've got a recipe for uncertainty for sure. Today, rather than trying to figure all these factors out and what might happen this year to the stock market, we're going to focus on just one of those, and that is, can anyone really predict or what to do in investments with the stock market based on who they think might be in the office and what has happened to the market in the past based on similar elections? Well, that's you. If you or someone you know is trying to time the stock market right now based on what you think will happen and who will be our next president, What you're going to discover is this is a fool's game at best. But don't worry, when I return, we'll talk about the history of the stock market based on who's in office and why in the end it has very little to do with you and I trying to predict the future. Stay tuned, I'm Tony Walker. I'll be right back. Whether you're a long-time viewer of the Worry-Free Retirement or just catching it for the first time, know this: you can watch past episodes and educational clips by visiting our YouTube channel. Just log on to youtube.com and search Tony Walker Financial. The rule of thumb in the investment world says this: historically speaking, the year following the election of a new president usually spells doom for the stock market. And assuming that is a true fact, one would be a fool to invest in the stock market on any year following the year of an election. Just one more example of people trying to figure out when to invest in the stock market. Well, at Tony Walker Financial, we decided to do something pretty unique. Recently, we hired Keith Fuqua to assist Shannon Ross with our Charles Schwab platform, and I asked Keith to do some background on the historical data related to the stock market as it pertains to an election year. So with us via Zoom is our own Keith Fuqua. Good morning, Keith. How are we doing there in Bowling Green?
Great. How are you doing, Tony?
Doing great, doing great. All right, Keith. So here we go. You've done some homework there. Give us 2 or 3 tidbits that you found in your studies on what happens during an election year or following an election year when it comes to investing money in the stock market.
Sure. Well, we look back back all the way to 1928, right before the Great Depression, and it looks like the S&P 500 had positive returns every year, with the exception of four years, and that was 1932, the end of the Great Depression, 1940, which was the beginning of World War II, and then of course you had the dot-com bubble in 2000, and in 2008 the financial crisis during that time. So with the exception of those years, there was all positive returns from the S&P 500 during the years.
That really surprised me because I've heard people, and I've even kind of said this, well, it's an election year, be careful. And what's interesting, Keith, I noticed as you said those particular events, there was a lot of economic and worldly issues that also affected those downturns, correct?
Correct, yeah. Based on our research, it appears that outside economic factors, global factors contribute more than candidates do to stock market returns. So
that's interesting. What else did you find, Keith, in some of your research?
Well, it looks like beginning on the 4-year presidential cycle, the first year the returns are probably the lowest, and then they have an increase in the second year, and then the third year it kind of peaks at the highest, and then the election year it drops down just a little bit. So I think the patterns kind of show that no matter who gets elected, that it'll steadily climb. So your returns, your portfolio will return and grow still. So
that is really interesting. I tell you, the funny one was, and I think I looked at some of your notes on that. If past is prologue, what would happen is the year following an election, sometimes it goes down or doesn't do much. Correct?
Correct.
Okay, so if you think about this in 2016. What did the market do in 2017? In other words, if somebody tried to time the market and get out, what would have happened?
Well, they'd have missed out on a pretty hefty gain. I think the market was over 12% that year. So that's what time in the market will get for you. So
yeah.
We're trying to time the market.
Trying to time the market. Well, Keith, good stuff. We're going to get you back to work, and we appreciate so much you're doing your research and all that you're doing there for our clients at Tony Walker Financial. You make it a good one. I'm going to get back to the show here.
Well, thank you very much, Tony.
Good stuff. And as this article from Forbes reminds us, if you tried to time the stock market in 2017 by pulling all your money out and putting it in something safe, you would have missed out actually on an 18% return. So let's say you did that. You timed the market wrong. Let's say you had $100,000 at the end of 2016 and feeling strongly about the stock market crashing in 2017 because you thought after an election the market always went down, you decided to put your money in 2016 into something very safe, maybe earning 1%. Well, by the end of 2017, you'd have about $101,000. But if you had left the money in the market and tried to time it and stay in, you would have had $118,000. But of course, since you feel like you mistimed the market and thinking it would surely go back down the next year, you left it in the 1% account to stay conservative. And what happened? Well, the market, as we know, kept going up and up and up. Frustrated that you missed out on thousands of dollars, then you decide, fast forward to February of this year, 2020, to throw your money back into the stock market. And then what happened? Yep, March 16th, and for the next 4 weeks following, you lose 30%. And now all of a sudden, your $101,000 drops to around $70,000. So now what? Do you get back in the market or do you not? And see, folks, therein lies the problem with trying to time the stock market. And we've proved that it doesn't really matter always who's in office. What matters is, do you have a game plan? Do you have a philosophy, an advisor who's trying to help you use and enjoy this money, protect more of it? And yes, we can put some money in the stock market, but not try to time the market and risk your retirement. If you don't, you want to stay tuned, because we're going to share a new concept on our show that we're going to share every week called the Live Well, Die Broke Moment, and how I help this couple achieve their objectives without additional risk. I'm Tony Walker. You're watching the Worry-Free Retirement. I'll be right back.
My name is Mark Williams, and I've been in the financial services industry for around 30 years now. I'm the CEO and president of Brokers International in Des Moines, Iowa. At Brokers International, to put it simply, we help agencies and financial professionals grow their business. We offer live support, digital tools and services, and several ways to submit both annuity and life insurance applications. Right now, we service around 4,500 financial professionals nationwide. The one thing I continually see with the successful financial professionals that we work with is that they have a repeatable process of doing business and providing service to their customers. Tony Walker is one example of those financial professionals that utilizes a repeatable process. We started providing our services to Tony and his firm a few years ago. I think what makes him so successful is that he's got such a well-oiled machine, a process that he's created himself. In fact, I flew my team out to Kentucky so we could see it face to face how Tony consistently provides that service. When it comes to his process, I found that one thing Tony does really well is hire more service professionals to help him so that he can continue to see and help more people. Tony has figured out that in order to service thousands of clients with top-notch service, you have to have a process, a way to duplicate what you do day in and day out. I'd invite you to give a call to Tony Walker.
Have you recently retired, been laid off, or offered a pension buyout? Has the company you work for moved, been acquired, or closed its doors forever? And finally, do you have a 401k with a previous employer you'd like to move to safer territory? Then take advantage of this opportunity to move your 401k or lump sum pension to Tony Walker Financial. Let's meet in person to discuss your retirement options. Log on now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com to schedule your free, no obligation appointment. Let us help you today. Welcome back to the Worry-Free Retirement. And as we try to figure out how to predict this stock market, especially during an election year, I got to say something. You know, I decided, people always say, hey, Tony, I know you ain't got no crystal ball over there. Well, we decided to buy a crystal ball. Not only that, we got this cool little Wall Street thing that says buy, sell, hold, or jump, and then you spin that little die. But anyway, I got this crystal ball, and I don't think the thing works. So I recently Googled and tried to find out if there was anybody out there that could help me with this darn crystal ball. And I stumbled across a self-proclaimed soothsayer of sorts by the name of Peter the Predictor, who, for a small fee of course, was able to magically appear in my crystal ball with this outlook on the stock market. Check it out.
I can see in the next 6 months, the market's just gonna go gangbusters.
I know we laugh about all this, and this is why we came up with something our own Amelia Johnson came up with, this idea of taking our book, our philosophy of Live Well, Die Broke, and creating real-life stories we call Live Well, Die Broke moments. So here's what we're going to do here. We're going to take an example of someone that came in recently. Basically, they were a 62-year-old, all right? This was a retired couple. And ironically, I'd met with this couple back at the end of 2019. Now, one of their main goals was to pay off their home, which of course, if they talked to most financial advisors and institutions, they'd probably said, don't do it, because their home had a loan of about $150,000. You see, like most people, this couple had a lot of money, most of their money, quite frankly, in a pre-tax 401k plan. That meant any money they pulled out of the 401k plan, you've heard me talk about the tax tumor, had to go to taxes. So they had about $800,000 in their 401k plan. So our own in-house tax specialist, Leanne Powell, calculated that in order to net $150,000, we were going to have to take $200,000 out of the 401k plan in order to give Uncle Sam his fair share, which we ended up doing. And seeing as though this was the end of 2019, remember in 2019 the market was at an all-time high, my thought was the timing of paying off their home right now, with the market being so high, made complete sense. So, moral to the story, this couple now has a paid-for home, and they still have around $600,000 with us in our split IRA concept, because we, I guess luckily, pulled money out of the stock market when the market was high. Sure, we had to pay the taxes, but they were going to have to pay that someday anyway. And as we always say, at what rate? So at least we knew the taxes and got that out of the way. So in summary, our decision to pull money out of the stock market, in this case to pay off their home, was not a timing decision. I didn't have to turn to my crystal ball to predict the timing of this. This was simply a decision to pay off their home because they wanted to pay it off. And since we're not money managers, nor are we wealth managers, since we're retirement planning specialists, that's our job. Our job is to help savers use and enjoy their money the best they can while they can. So if you'd like the sound approach of retirement planning this way, where you're looking at everything as a holistic approach to your money, maybe you feel like you really don't even have an objective, and here's the important part, independent advisor who is truly working in your best interest, a fiduciary, then let's talk. What we can do is lay out a game plan for your money so you can enjoy it while you still can. We can also talk to you about our beloved mailbox money so we don't have to predict the future as it involves the stock market. So to get started, all you have to do is log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Now here's how this works. Once you go to TonyWalkerFinancial.com, you'll click on the Let's Get Started button. That information is confidentially sent to our offices. Our office will contact you immediately and arrange either a phone call to talk to me by phone about your situation, or we can meet in person at either our Bowling Green, Louisville, or Lexington, Kentucky offices. And best of all, there is absolutely no cost to meet with me. So log on, TonyWalkerFinancial.com, or call the toll-free number on your screen. Incidentally, we also have just written a white paper that's on the homepage at TonyWalkerFinancial.com, and it's called Investing in an Election Year. As well, we'll also have a webinar on October 27th. This educational webinar can be found at TonyWalkerFinancial.com as well by going to Educational Opportunities. And during this webinar, all I'm going to do is offer questions and answers that can help you think clearly about your money during these turbulent times. So again, log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com, and don't forget to go to our YouTube channel as well at Tony Walker Financial. Well, what does the Bible have to say about stockpiling money and trying to predict the future and following after the advice of fools who really know nothing about it? Some good stuff coming your way from the richest man who ever walked the face of the earth. But first, I got to take my little Wall Street cup and get me another cup of coffee. You stay tuned. And our Tony Walker Employee Spotlight is brightly shining on my favorite son-in-law, Mr. Trey Juergens. Trey, good to have you with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, Trey, first of all, give everybody a little bit of background on your situation when you came to Tony Walker Financial, how long you've been here, and a little bit about your role, how it's changed over these past 3 years.
Yeah, so I've been on board almost 3 years, which is hard to believe. It seems like just yesterday, but I started with more of a marketing background, which is good in this business because we do all of our own marketing, and that kind of blended itself into seeing more people. I started on the life insurance side of things. I've met with more and more of our clients and prospects, and lucky enough to pass my Series 65 here.
That was awesome.
Yeah,
that's cool.
So I get to be a fellow fiduciary, which is a fun word to say, but even more important, I get to help more of our clients. So it's a cool thing to keep growing in my education. I've got a great teacher, but it's fun to see more people.
Yeah, and I was going to say, if you don't mind speaking to that just a little bit, because I know when you got in this business, you had really no clue what we did, but I think everybody has a perception. Oh, it's pretty easy. I mean, don't y'all just kind of sell annuities and put some money in investments? But how would you describe the retirement planning process and how we at Tony Walker Financial, how detailed that process is?
Yeah, it's something special. I think that's when I understood or thought I understood what you did. I had kind of an idea until I saw what all goes on in the Bowling Green office, how much goes into our personalized game plans, the proprietary software you came up with. It is more than I ever imagined any business our size or any size could do. So just the what people think we do, they really have no idea.
That's a good way to put it. Now that you're a fiduciary and you're starting to see more and more people, which incidentally you're doing a great job of that, I know that gives you confidence, but what would you tell the people out there that are saying, Tony Walker, can only see so many people? What would you say to the amount of work that I do, but also how you're starting to come into the fray, and then we've got Heather in the Bowling Green office, and how that bodes well for, I think, any of our clients and potential clients?
Yeah, it all boils down to our efficient process and how much the Bowling Green office supports us in terms of doing a lot of the service work, but also allowing me and Heather to meet with some folks. I think they're comfortable in meeting with us. We're knowledgeable. We're able to at least give them an answer and get them in a little bit more quickly and not delay them to get in and wait to see you possibly. So I think we're able to see some more people and provide them comfort and confidence in meeting with us.
And again, I know you know this, but obviously Heather being with me this long, now you a fiduciary, people sometimes ask, well, Tony, what happens if something happens to you? So it makes me proud to have you on board, have Heather, have this team that if something were to happen, eventually it will. I don't plan on retiring, but you never know, that you're there, Heather's there, we've got a team, and I think people should be very confident in what we're doing. I think you would agree with that.
I would hope so.
Well, thanks so much, Trey, for all you do, and we look forward to continuing to serving all these savers.
Yep, thank you.
Global wealth inequality is getting out of control. The world's richest 1% has more than twice the wealth of 6.9 billion people combined.
At the beginning of this show, I posed a question to America's favorite financial sidekick, and now I'd like to pose the same question to you. What if all the world's wealth was evenly distributed to all the world's people? How long would it take for all the world's wealth to get back into the hands of just a few people? Your answer? That's right. Who knows? And in the words of my late great father, who cares? Yet the fact remains, regardless of who is in office, regardless of when the next virus might come along, regardless of how smart or know-it-all someone thinks they are, no one can predict the future. Yet when it comes to our futures, we humans do care about it. And with this care and concern over our future and our money comes the real risk that we can easily get sidetracked from our personal goals and start following the herd, especially if we think they have the ability to predict the future. And isn't that what much of the world promises us? If we will only do this, then we should easily just get that. In reality, unless you're in the know or hanging around a very tight-knit group of people who are, like that small group of people who do in fact will probably get most of the world's wealth in the end, there's a good chance that playing this game of trying to predict the future by risking your money in it may lead to a lot of heartache and worry. You see, we all have this one thing about us that's in common. We don't want to miss out on more than we think that we need or have. Money and possessions can do that to us in many ways. We have what we have, which is usually sufficient for our needs and wants. Then we see something like a huge stock market gain, or see on TV how all these wealthy people live and how easy it seems to make a bunch of money, and we get suckered into the game of investing and doing things we really don't understand. So for help on this very real possibility of playing this fool's game we cannot win, let's look to the richest man on earth who walked the face of the earth years ago, Solomon, and in Ecclesiastes 5:13 he says this, "There is a grievous evil which I have seen under the sun, riches being hoarded by their owner to their hurt." In other words, what Solomon noticed is that our human condition tells us that what we have is not enough, and surely if that guy on TV down the street can figure out how to make more, we can too. And what does Solomon have to say about listening and following the advice of those who convince us of their magical abilities to predict the future? Well, let's go to chapter 7, verse 5. It says, "It is better to listen to the rebuke of a wise man than that to listen to the song of fools." I would say fools who think they can really predict the future and drag you along with them. Fools who still have the ability to come out on top, even sometimes when you may not. My advice, be careful in being played for a fool. These folks have no more ability to predict the future than you and I do. But that doesn't mean that won't stop them from trying. Solomon's response found in Ecclesiastes 8:7 is this, "If no one knows what will happen, who can tell him when it will happen?" It's basically the same question I asked Aaron in the start of the show and the one I'm asking you. And here's the answer. I don't know, Aaron doesn't know, the sharp-dressed guy on TV doesn't know, only God knows. And knowing that God knows is the best possession that you and I have. You see, for those of us who claim to be followers of Christ, our future is already secure. We know that our future is established. Nothing can take us off course. So what is my advice? Stay the course. Keep your hand to the plow. Invest wisely. Recognize you're not going to be here forever, and get a written game plan that includes as its main objective preservation of principal and mailbox money for life. Quit taking unnecessary risk with your money when you don't have to. The live well, die broke philosophy is biblical, one that was born out of years and years of myself working in the trenches with more than 15,000 savers, trying to help them figure out how to invest in an unpredictable market and an unpredictable world. You know, the key to a worry-free retirement is to begin with the end. Start now. Think about what you really want and get to it. And with Tony Walker Financial, this is so easy to do. All you got to do to get a free written game plan is log on right now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. And don't forget, we can also include in that plan that beloved mailbox money that I'm always talking about. So log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com right now, click on that Let's Get Started, and we can arrange a convenient time to meet by phone or at one of our offices at Bowling Green, Louisville, or Lexington, Kentucky. Do it now, TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Well, we hope you've enjoyed today's program. Next week, we're going to talk about the 4 biggest blunders people make with their 401k plans and how to avoid them. But between now and then, you remember, if all else fails, you be worry-free. Make it a good one.